What is up, guys? We are back with another video, and this is another BIOS video. And today we're checking out the BIOS here on the ASUS ROG Maximus Z690 Hero. Now, this BIOS should be pretty much the same across all of ASUS's ROG Z690 motherboards. Obviously, different motherboards will have different settings, but overall the settings should be pretty much the same. Now, the big thing with this video is that this is not going to be going into crazy detail on all of the settings. This is just to show you where the settings are, and we might explain just a few of the settings, but this is kind of just like a walkthrough.
This video is brought to you by our friends over at Patriot and their Viper Steel DDR4 memory. With capacities up to 64 gigabytes and speeds up to 4400 megahertz, these kits will be a great addition to your gaming rig. Go to thinkcomputers.org/Viper Steel to pick up your kit today.
You might be wondering, how do I get into the BIOS? Like, how do I get into this screen? All you do is when you turn on your computer, you power on your system, you keep on hitting the delete key on your keyboard. Just keep on hitting it and you'll be dropped into the BIOS here. And at least on our version of the motherboard, we're actually dropped into the advanced mode, which I think if you are buying a Maximus motherboard, you probably want to be in advanced mode anyways. But we'll switch over to easy mode first just to go through it really quickly. So you can toggle between easy mode and advanced mode. All you got to do is just hit F7 and you can toggle between the two, as you can see here. So the easy mode is pretty standard. It hasn't changed all that much on ASUS motherboards in the past few years. So up top here, we just have information on the board we're running, you know, our processor, memory, everything like that. We have a live graph here of our CPU temperature, our CPU core voltage, and our motherboard temperature. We have our DRAM status showing the memory that we do have installed. Storage information, which includes both your SATA drive and your NVMe drive. XMP, so if you just wanted to enable your XMP profile, disabled, enabled. It's really that easy. Intel Rapid Storage Technology, you can toggle that on or off. Fan profile, we can go ahead and see all of the fans that we have connected, all the headers on the board. Of course, we only have a CPU fan connected, but you can see that, you know, we can see its speed here in real time. You can see our fan curve, and then we can actually go into QFan control, and it allows you to set your fan curves and everything like that for all of the headers on the board. You know, silent, turbo, full speed, all that kind of stuff you can set yourself. And then over here, we do have AI overclocking. You can set that to normal. You can set it to AI optimized, and that's pretty much it. And the AI optimized will kind of just like test your system and give you the best overclock possible. Boot priority, this allows you to set different boot modes, or not set different boot modes, set different boot priority. So if we had more drives here, we could just drag and drop these drives easily so we can set our boot priority. And you have a little thing here to go into your boot menu, which just brings that up like that. And that is pretty much it. We also have like the AI OC guide, search, Aura. This basically will allow you to turn all of your Aura sync stuff on or off. So all of the RGB lights on the board on or off. Resizable bar support, you can set that as well. Really easy here. And then you can also run memtest 86 right from the easy mode here. So these are just kind of shortcuts right here. And of course we can change our language and all of that. But that is basically easy mode. So let's go into advanced mode. Just hit F7 as I said. And when you're dropped into advanced mode, you are on this main screen right here. This is gonna give you all of the information on your BIOS, your processor, and there is a little security setting here where you can set up a administrator password and user password. Now there is a My Favorites menu in. For us, we did populate it with a bunch of different settings here. Any setting that is in the BIOS, you can add to your My Favorites menu. So, you know, it's easily accessible. Like we don't have to want to go, you know, into a bunch of menus to find like the PTT if we want to install Windows 11, you know what I mean? Just different settings that you want to put in here so they're just all on one page and all really easy to find. You don't have to jump through a bunch of menus to find them. So you can do that with My Favorites. But I know most of you are going to be in the Extreme Tweaker menu. This is where you're going to do all of your system tuning, all of your overclocking, all that kind of fun stuff. It's going to be done in here. And at the top, like most ASUS BIOSes, we have our targets. So as we change these settings, our targets will change. And that's good to let you know, if I change this setting, what is my, target CPU speed going to be and all that kind of stuff. And of course, you can see with the new Alder Lake processors, we have CPU speeds for both the performance cores as well as the efficient cores up here. AI overclock tuner. This is going to be if you want to enable your XMP profile, just XMP1 and your, XMP1 and, okay, let me select it. My mouse is jumping around for some reason. XMP1 to set your AI overclock tuner, and then it will set your XMP profile, if your memory does support that. You have your BCLK and PCIe frequency, ASUS multi-core enhancement. Again, by default, all of this stuff is set to auto. SVID behavior, BCLK frequency, DRAM frequency ratio. Again, you really don't need to change any of these if you're doing overclocking, if you're just running your system, everything should be auto by default, which is a good thing. DRAM frequency, again, we set our XMP profile, so it set this for us, but if we were doing any memory overclocking, we can, go ahead and change this value. Performance core ratio. So of course, the performance cores are the ones that you're going to be wanting to overclock for the most part. We can set them to auto. We can sync all cores, so we just set the all core ratio limit. We can also do it by core usage, or we can do it AI optimized, which, the motherboard or the BIOS will kind of set what those, ratio limits will be. You can also do the thing, you can set it for specific cores. You can set them, how you want as well. Same thing with the efficient cores. We get the exact same options here. And again, we can set them by groups in the efficient cores, what they would be in there. CPU, SVID, auto, AVX related controls. If you wanted to go ahead and change any of those, again, everything is auto by default. DRAM timing controls. So again, if you wanted to loosen or tighten your timings, you do all of that in here. All of your timings are in here and you can go ahead and change all of that. There's also, with DDR5 being very new, there's also memory presets built into the BIOS. So if you are having some trouble, with certain memory configurations or just compatibility, there are a bunch of memory presets in here, that will help you load those presets. You don't have to change every little setting yourself. Then we go to DigiPlus VRM. This is all of your kind of power related settings, voltage monitor. Let's go over. I always use my keyboard and sometimes I should use my mouse. All right, let's go. So this is, your load line calibrations, all that kind of stuff that you can go ahead and set. Everything to do with really power settings is in your DigiPlus VRM. Voltage caps you can go ahead and set as well. Internal CPU power management. So these are certain power settings that you can set, especially if you're doing overclocking. You might want to change these up just a little bit. Thermal velocity boost. Again, you can set these. Again, everything is auto by default. VF point offsets. Again, you can set those. And again, everything is auto by default. Tweaker's Paradise. This is a lot of really specific settings for, memory, for voltages, ratios, things like that. Again, if you're doing just basic overclocking, you won't need to touch any of this, but it is here if you need it. AI features. Again, this is all of your AI stuff. The AI tuning works by based on your cooler performance. So if you installed a new CPU cooler, you might want to recalibrate your cooler. You can do all of that in here and all of that for the AI tuning. And then you have things like minimum CPU cache ratio, maximum CPU cache ratio, and then all of your voltages. So, you know, if you were overclocking and you wanted to change your core and cache voltages, you can do it right here. Same thing with your DRAM voltages, you know, all that kind of stuff. And then advanced memory voltages. This is all of your super advanced memory voltages if you wanted to go ahead and change that. Oops. And that is it for the extreme tweaker. There are so many settings in this, and a lot of them I'm not even sure what they do. But again, these are for, you know, extreme overclockers, people who are really fine tuning every little bit of their system. And there's great guides that you can follow to kind of do all that kind of stuff. But for basic overclocking, everything is really easy to find. Let's go over to the advanced tab, and this is everything basically else that's on the board. Platform misconfiguration. You know, you have PCI Express native power management, all that kind of stuff. You know, PCI Express clock gating, things like that that you might want to change. CPU configuration, again, this shows you information on your processor. You can see your efficient core information as well as your performance core information, and then, you know, different things you might want to enable or disable. And a lot of people, when they are trying to get these crazy high overclocks, especially professional overclockers, they'll actually disable the efficient cores. So you can, again, disable or enable efficient cores in here, and then all of the different Intel technologies, hyper-threading, you know, per core hyper-threading. You can set here as well, CPU power management control. You can set that, enable or disable, you know, Intel Turbo Boost, Turbo Mode, C states, things like that. You can go ahead and set in here. System agent configuration. You know, there's different settings in here, and then you can go to memory configuration, memory remap, graphics configuration. This is where you would enable your iGPU if you were using the internal graphics on your processor. VMD setup menu, PCI Express configuration. This is where you set your link speeds on your PCI Express as well as the first M.2 slots. PCH configuration. Again, these are your link speeds for the second and third M.2 slots. You may need to change these depending on what graphics cards or how many slots you have populated. PCH storage configuration. Again, this is all of your storage stuff. SATA controllers you can enable or disable. All the SATA hot plugs you can, you know, each one of them you can enable or disable as well. PCH FW configuration. This is just to enable PTT. We've gone over this in our video, how to enable PTT for Windows 11. It is enabled by default on all these new motherboards, so you won't have to change this. But if for some reason Windows 11 won't install, just make sure this is set to enable. Thunderbolt configuration. Again, we do have Thunderbolt on this board, so this is all the configuration for that. And then discrete Thunderbolt configuration as well. Trusted computing. Again, this is all stuff that is enabled by default, so you won't have to change anything. But if you wanted to, you know, set anything up for your own TPM device, you can do that here as well. PCI subsystem stuff, resizable bar support. You know, you want to enable this if you want to use that, you know, feature. USB configuration. Again, this is all of your USB ports. You can see what's connected, and then you can turn on legacy USB support. And then each port on the board, you can enable or disable if you wanted to. Network stack configuration, NVMe configuration. Again, we have one NVMe drive installed. We can go in here and, you know, you can run a self-test. You can see all the information on the drive, everything like that. HDD smart information. Again, this is stuff that is on, you know, your hard drive. You can see all the smart information for that. APM configuration, onboard devices configuration. Again, you know, certain things you might want to change on this. PCI Gen 5 redriver driving, you might want to, you know, change or mess with. USB audio, Intel LAN, all that kind of stuff you might want to enable or disable on the board. The LED lighting, again, a lot of people get annoyed when they power off their system, but the RGBs on the board are still on. So this is all of those settings if you wanted to change that. And then here are the M.2 settings. Again, you know, if you wanted to use the included add-in card, you want to make sure you change these settings, and there's a bunch of different settings with the Hyper M.2 card that you can change here, but here is where they are. So if you do use that Hyper M.2 card, you may need to change these settings. And then we have, you know, the storage, AS Media storage controller and all that kind of stuff. If you want to enable or disable that. That is everything that's on the board. And then we have Intel Rapid Storage Technology. Of course, we don't have anything set up for that. Onto monitor. So we can monitor temperatures. We can actually disable or enable all of these. They'll show you that really quick, but just a live view of all of our temperatures and everything like that on the board. Fan speed, same thing. We can monitor or not monitor them, and then, you know, just shows you a live feed. Same thing with voltages. Again, it will show you all of that. And then QFan configuration. This is basically a text version of the one that's in easy mode. You can set everything up how you want for that. And then CPU temperature LED switch, you can enable or disable that. Moving over to boot, you know, we can set up compatibility support module, secure boots, and then your boot configuration. You can set all of that stuff up for your boot sequence, and then your boot options, and of course, boot override. I always like to see it. You know, we're installing Windows. Well, you should be installing Windows from a flash drive these days. So boot override just makes it so you can boot to that flash drive first, and then when your system restarts, you don't have to worry about pulling it out. It just makes that process so much easier. Under tools, we have ASUS Easy Flash 3 utility, allows you to easily flash your BIOS. BIOS image rollback support, ASUS secure erase. So if you do have an SSD and you want to either sell it or give it to a friend, you want to make sure it's secure erase. You can go ahead and do that. The flex key, that is the button that's next to the power button on the motherboard. By default, it's set to the reset button, but you can actually set it to, you know, enable or disable your Aura RGB lighting, direct key or safe boot, setup animator, ASUS user profile. So if you had a user profile, you can, you know, set that here. ASUS SPD information. This just shows you, again, information on the memory you have installed. Memtest, that, you know, allows you to run memtest. And then ASUS Armory Crate. So when you first install Windows and you're connected to the internet, it's going to ask you to install and download ASUS's Armory. I think for beginners, that's the perfect thing to do. It allows you to download that piece of software, and then it automatically downloads all your drivers and updates. It just makes things a lot easier. But if you don't want that to happen, it is enabled by default. So if you don't want that to happen, you just go over to disabled and you disable it. Same thing with my ASUS. So this is disabled by default, but if you wanted to download the my ASUS app, you just go ahead and, of course, set this to enable. And that is it for tools. And then under exits, we of course have our load optimized, save changes, and discard and all of that stuff. That is pretty much it for this BIOS. This BIOS, again, because this is a Maximus board, there are so many fine-tuned settings, especially when it comes to overclocking and voltages and everything like that. But it's easy enough. Again, the ASUS BIOS has not changed. I thought there might be a change for Z690, but there's not really a massive change. It looks the same. The easy mode is essentially the same as well. But if you have any questions about this BIOS, go ahead and leave it in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate it if you hit the thumbs up. We'll see you guys in the next video.